These are the activities I have planned for this lesson. Each student will be given a blank index card, and they're going to write their name on the card. I'm going to ask them why adding and subtracting decimal numbers is important for me as a math teacher. I will then ask for each student to write down on the line side of their index card one profession, not including mine, that uses addition of decimal numbers, and then on the side that doesn't have lines, one way that their family uses decimal numbers. I will then set the timer for 2.5 minutes to ensure enough time. I will then ask someone to share their profession and their family use of decimal numbers, and will record them on paper titled "How do we use decimal numbers?" with one side labeled profession and the other labeled family. I'll then ask if someone can give me a different profession and family use and explain that if their choices have already been called out, then they are allowed to place a check beside the choice on their card. After every choice has been listed, I will collect the cards and we will discuss how each one actually uses the skill. For example, a person who works at the gas station uses addition and subtraction of decimals on the cash register to allow you to pay for your gas. A chemist uses addition and subtraction of decimals to find the correct weight of a compound to make medicine. Mom uses addition and subtraction to manage her bank account before she goes grocery shopping. If students have not used a variety of professions to see the huge variation that uses these math skills, I will provide some examples myself. Next, I will explain to the students that they do not know what they will be doing as an adult, but they will be using addition and subtraction of decimal numbers if they plan on having a job, a bank account, a home, electricity, water, a vehicle, and food. At the end of this lesson, I expect them to know how to add and subtract decimal numbers using the steps that we will learn, and I also expect them to know why this is important for them now and in the future. Then I will use two word problems with the context of real-world situations to model the addition and subtraction of decimal numbers. I will ask the students what words in the problem give the information needed to know if the problem will be addition or subtraction. This is something we have previously worked on. After the students have decided for addition or subtraction, I will intentionally write the problem down without aligning the decimals to see if someone catches the mistake and can tell me what I did wrong. I will show students that they should fill empty spaces with a placeholder. This vocabulary was taught in a previous lesson. And then I will ask them if they can recall what number we always use as a placeholder. I will then perform the necessary steps to add or subtract the problem and show them how in addition and subtraction the decimal always falls straight down. But we will later learn with multiplication and division it does not fall straight down. It moves around all over the place. Then I will ask the students to help me write down the steps necessary for adding and subtracting that we use working the practice problems. We will write these on our paper that's titled 4 Steps for Adding and Subtracting Decimals to hang on the wall for future reference. I will ask them what I did first, second, third, and fourth, or last. I am adding a step to what most people use because this allows for students to see that determining the mathematical operation needed to work the problem should always be the first step, regardless of a word problem or just a problem using numbers. Last activity that I will do, I will have pairs that have already been chosen for this unit, so students will pair up and work up until time for the exit slip. They'll work on word problems that I have already copied and handed out, and they will have my supervision during this time. I will encourage them to always follow the steps as they work. In the event that some students finish all the problems provided correctly before time for the exit slip, I will have them write down their own word problems that I will consider for a test to be given over the unit. The word problems will be taken up at the end of the class along with the exit slips. I have chosen these activities, the discussion, for different professions and family members and how they use this math skill so that they can understand and relate to why this math skill is important to them as students and as future adults. This helps reach the objective of being able to explain why this skill is important in real-world situations. I have chosen to model the steps with errors to allow students to recognize for themselves why the steps are important and so they will better remember the steps for future use in assessment. I've chosen for the students to practice the steps using real-world problems involving amounts of money to further emphasize the objective that this skill is important and relative to their everyday life. The materials I will use for these activities are index cards, pencils, the dry erase board, dry erase markers, white easel pad paper, marker for the easel pad, word problems for modeling, copies of word problems, blank paper, exit slips, and a timer. I have chosen the index cards and the pencils to record the answers geared toward the discussion question. These ensure that I have proof that each student participated. I will use the dry erase board and markers to model the math problem and the steps needed to complete the problems. I will use the white pad and marker for recording the information that I want to post for the students to use for future reference. I will use an addition and subtraction word problem to model both and to show the steps needed to solve them. I will use the copies of word problems to allow the students to practice and to use as a formative assessment tool at the end of the class period. I will provide blank paper for students to write their own word problems to be considered as future test questions, and I will use exit slips to assess the students' understanding of the ordering of steps learned to complete the problems. I will use the timer as needed so that we do not spend too much time on any one activity. For my evaluation, I will assess the students' understanding of where these skills are used as we have discussion, and their participation will be assessed from the index cards. As the students work on the problems in pairs, I will walk around the classroom and observe students as they work together, and use a checklist to record their cooperative learning skills and assess their understanding of the material covered in the lesson. I will use the problems used in cooperative learning activity to assess the pairs of students. I will use exit slips to assess each pair of students on their ability to place the steps in order from a list of steps that are out of order. I will use a copy of the same exit slip the next morning for Show Me at the beginning of class to assess each individual student's knowledge of the order of the steps. I have chosen the approach for these evaluations for different reasons. I've chosen index cards to ensure that each student has participated in the discussion, even if they did not actually get to give an example for the discussion. I will also look at these to see if a student needs further clarification. I've chosen to walk around and use observation to ensure that all students are working, all students are collaborating, and to clear up any misunderstandings that may be observed. It is important that not only one student is doing all the work, and that the students use proper communication skills to work together. These skills are important for future learning and for adults. I will use a checklist to monitor collaboration to have as a reminder of who may need reminders on the skills needed to work together. I have chosen to collect the problems worked to use as a formative assessment tool to recognize if there are any misunderstandings in a group of students that I may have missed during observation, and to plan my teaching for the next day. I have chosen to use exit slips for assessing the ability of the students to place the steps in the correct order to guide my instruction for the next day, and to see if there are any common mistakes that need further clarification. Allowing the students to complete the exit slips in pairs helps to take away the anxiety some may have. I've chosen to use the same exit slip the next morning to assess individual understanding of the steps learned. This allows me to assess who understood the material from the previous day and who retained the information. I can then quickly determine which students may need some extra practice or instruction before moving forward.